encourage your soul, enlighten your mind, and empower your faith. This is the Light Network.
You know what time it is, no matter where you've been. So let's do it again. Listen up and let the sun shine in. We've got soul training. Time to practice what you preach. Ooh, yeah. Yes, we do. We've got soul training.
And here's Daniel, Alan, and Joe.
Hello, Daniel. Hello, Joe. How are you this morning?
Just right. How about you?
Wait, we shouldn't have told what time of day it was. Is that right?
It doesn't matter. I'm good.
It does matter.
There are mornings every day until the Lord returns, so
Somewhere.
that doesn't affect the evergreenness of the show, which we are now obligated to mention every single episode, I think.
Think about your talent and my talent. What are two things I can't do, according to the people?
Well, I know what. Okay, two things.
Two things I can't do.
I only know of one thing that the consensus you claim is
Dunk a basketball.
I'm not weighing in on, but I know that you're heading towards singing. Nobody lets you lead singing here.
Right. Yeah. Here or there or over there or back there or in front, in nowhere.
What's the other thing you can't do?
Right now, I can't play an instrument.
Oh, okay.
I can play the recorder a little bit.
Can you?
I can play the radio.
Can you really? Well, I mean, I want to learn how to play the steel guitar one day. That's my goal.
Some bad news for you. That's one of the most difficult instruments to learn.
Well, so I mean.
So if you can master that, you'll probably be able to master a bunch of other ones.
What do you think my potential?
Potential for what?
Being able to master that is.
It's near zero. It's really tough.
You played with probably the most famous steel guitar player ever, and you didn't know it.
I knew it.
Don Helm.
Yeah, Don Helms. The story was they asked me to go play. There's this place in Tennessee. The name escapes me, but there's a funeral home there. And right after Thanksgiving, all these guitar players would show up there. There's this guy from Alabama who was supposed to have been there. He would have not come.
They call it a guitar pool.
But all these guitar players there. There was a guy that was Patsy Cline's guitar player.
Did you say this happened at a funeral home?
It's at a funeral home.
What city?
Lively crowd, huh?
Yeah. There were no dead people at the funeral home at the time. And so I show up, and there's like 50 guitar players sitting around strumming, and there's a couple guys playing electric. One of those, like I said, he was an older guy. He was Patsy Cline's guitar player. And then Don Helms was there. He was Hank Williams Sr.'s lap steel player. Country Music Hall of Famer.
Yeah, all those. He was there in the beginning.
And so I show up. They wanted me to play guitar, and I said, listen, y'all got like 500 guitar players here, but there's a drum set back there right where the casket is usually sits. And nobody's playing drums, and we've got all the vocals, and we've got the guitars, and we've got everything else, but there's no drums. And I can play drums, so just let me play drums. And so it turns out that I sat in playing drums for Don Helms at a funeral home some random November Saturday evening in front of a live audience. No dead folks.
Three quick questions.
Yeah.
What city was this in?
It was a small city north of Chattanooga. So I forget the name. I can get that. I can get it to you.
Second question. Why were you there?
My aunt wanted me to go there because she knew some of these semi-famous guys were supposed to be there, and I was trying to make it as a musician at the time.
So she's
like, you have to come. And I said, okay, I'll come.
If we can just drop Little Big Show Joe in,
right.
Then by osmosis or just through association, he's going to make it by being around these legends.
I don't know, but she wanted me to go, and I thought, that sounds like fun.
Okay. And the third question is, can you tell everybody, well, you already told them who Don Helms was, but did you have any interaction with him?
He was super old at the time, because you got to remember, this was probably about 20 years ago, which means Don Helms was probably 80 then. And so it was funny. Yeah, I talked with him. We had some interactions. He sat right in front of me. But it was funny. He would just sit there with his hands kind of folded in his lap, and whenever it was time for him to do something, Patsy Cline's a guitar player. They've known each other forever. He would just kind of slap him on the shoulder, and Don Helms would come to life and do a little riff and then go back and just sit there with his hands on his lap waiting for the next time.
See, in the presence of greatness.
Yeah.
They didn't know they were in the presence of greatness with you.
I was in the presence of greatness with them. I did get to do a drum solo in one of the songs they requested, and so that was
That's cool.
Yeah.
Or they told you to beat it, and you assumed that meant to beat the drum.
That's exactly right. They actually invited me back. They said, "Hey, what are you doing next year? Can you come back?" I said, "Well, I mean, we'll see."
That's cool.
I wound up never going back again.
Wow.
But
It could have been your big break.
It could have been.
Wow. Well, see, as you can tell by our little intro here, our conversation, I got you going, Joe, and you didn't even know it.
Yeah, it's not even about singing. Which is what the show's about.
But we have a love, and I didn't even think that. Daniel, you can impart whatever you want to about music and singing, but you can tell that we have an affinity or love for music and singing and creativity and all those things, and that's what we're going to talk about today. I think you talked about the impetus of this show was why do we sing in terms of our congregation, in terms of worship, and that's kind of the angle we're approaching. We love music, we love singing, but we're going to kind of define it as God wants to have us to when it comes to worship.
And in terms of just, before I pressed record here, we were just kind of talking earlier. There's a lot to think deeply about singing, not just in a worship setting, but singing overall. It's
byproducts.
It's weird. It's a weird thing to sing. We don't do anything else really like that. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's not appropriate to sing. If I was in the middle of a job interview and started singing, that would probably get me thrown out immediately, no matter how good I was.
Depending on what you're interviewing for.
It depends on what you're interviewing
If I was interviewing as a singer, I suppose, so one job out there. But every other job, if I'm trying to be the French fry cook at, Freddy's or whatever, and I start singing, they're probably gonna think I'm nuts.
If you're Joe, the jingle singer.
But there's a lot there when we're talking about singing. Daniel, you and I were talking earlier. Singing's a way that we learn whenever we're kids. Mm-hmm. I still sing the alphabet a lot of times whenever I'm trying to figure out, okay, what comes after W.
You don't mean you don't know?
Trying to do alphabetical stuff.
And then I still sing sometimes. I mean, there's others. So whenever we're teaching our children here at church, the apostles or whatever, we have songs for them.
Right.
When the acts of worship, we have songs for that. We teach them with songs because they get stuck in your head easily. Mm-hmm. Something about that melody and that information, putting it together, makes it stick.
It makes it more memorable. And that's an ancient practice. The way they used to pass down epic stories from one generation to another is to make them into songs. And we still do that to some extent, but not the way we used to before the written word was so readily available.
Yeah, there's something comforting about singing. You and I were talking earlier, when you're a child and you're scared, you're not feeling good or something, there is something special about your mother singing to you to calm you down.
Right.
Or to comfort you. I have the benefit of having a mother that sings beautifully. Not everybody has that benefit.
Right.
But if your mom can't sing, I bet as a child that was still one of the sweetest, purest sounds you heard was your mother singing to you. Mm-hmm.
And the song didn't even have to make sense. The music was that strong with it. Like, I guess the most common lullaby, Rockabye Baby, singing a song to your kids about a kid in a treetop falling out of a tree, and that's comforting.
My mom was singing Loretta Lynn.
Did she? Yeah. What'd she sing?
Coal Miner's Daughter.
Fist City?
Fist City. All of them. All the hits. It's a little different experience than I had. I'm glad you had yours, though.
Yeah.
Well, here's what Google had to say about singing. It said, singing is powerful because it engages multiple aspects of our being, from the physical to the emotional and social, leading to a range of benefits that impact our well-being and connect us to others. And then there are all kinds of scientific articles that come up that talk to you about the benefits of singing, not just of listening to music, but of actually participating and singing yourself.
Yeah, and keep in mind, we're talking right now just the act of singing, not singing as worship, just the act of singing.
I like the article you sent. I read in there that it also talked, and I just never occurred to me, but what you sent also it highlights the importance of lung capacity, lung function.
Yeah, well, let me go through some of these right fast.
I thought that was good.
And this is on the internet, so it's got to be true.
That's what Abraham Lincoln. I saw a post he said that too.
But this one article mentions singing lowers cortisol and relieves stress and tension. This is from the singupfoundation.org. I know nothing about these people, but they've done some research here. But it says it relieves stress and tension. It releases endorphins, which means it will boost confidence in the person singing. It's kind of a social thing, you know. If you're at we talked about this. You ever been to a concert? Alan, you ever been to a concert?
Oh, yeah.
Where
Has Alan been to a concert?
Don't get me started.
Where well, I know you listen to music from like the 40s, so it might be a little bit different crowd at this concert.
It is. I've my daughter got out and went with us once, and she said, I don't like it here because all the men were wearing dark blue jeans and white New Balance and flannel shirts.
But have you ever play along? You ever been to a show and the stars up there singing their biggest hit, and the entire audience is singing along with them? And what a beautiful sound it is to hear thousands and thousands of people singing in unison to that song. Have you ever had that experience?
I have that, and I've also had that. We've had that at like Lads to Leaders too.
Yeah.
Have you? That's what I first think of. Say, I'm not thinking about the country stuff. I'm thinking about the spiritual side at Lads to Leaders, do those the huge conventions, and there's people who posted things like in Dallas, those big hotels, and it's powerful.
I think that's what Joe's trying to transition to is the impact that it has when you sing as part of a group, when you sing with other people.
You're part of something.
Yes, you are, and you feel a bond with those other people that you don't even maybe you don't even know those people, but you're participating in this act together. Your voice is unified. You're singing this message together, and so it creates a I don't know if this is a real term or not, but a we-ness. It's us. It's we're doing something, and you feel that group mentality with all the people that are participating with that.
But before you leave that, or as you leave that, when I was never was little, when I was younger, in the 70s, one of my favorite things to watch, and I felt that unity, was you remember the Coke commercial in the late 70s around Christmas time?
A lot to teach the world to sing.
And everybody had a cigarette lighter. Was it a lighter, I guess, or a Coke? I don't know, but they were
Yeah,
singing.
now it would be a cell phone.
It'd be a cell phone, would be that. But they were like, I'd like to buy the world a Coke and teach it to sing in harmony and all those things. So I was about to bust out into it right now. I mean, I just remember watching that.
Right, well, because that's the memory you have. It's hard to say that probably without singing it.
Thankfully.
That's what's been embedded.
Oh, that's right.
So let's make the transition. So that's singing overall, but let's make the transition. Singing, I looked up a second ago, singing's referenced in the Bible some 400 times. So it's apparently a pretty important function that we have, and it's an important function of worship. We'll talk about these verses later. Singing is a way we can be engaged in worship here by communing with each other, having that social interaction there. We're commanded to do it. We'll talk about that in just a second. But help me out, Dan. It's like when you're singing, you're focused on those words. I'm focused deeply on what we're doing there. It's especially if you're singing a new song or something.
Yeah.
It's hard just to kind of get on autopilot. If you're singing a song you've been singing for the past 60 years, you can do autopilot a little bit and lose focus. You got to get back on it. But if you're singing a song that maybe you're learning, man, you got to be laser focused on it, or you're going to be out in left field.
As I listen to you talk, wouldn't you think that singing is also instructional, but it's physiological and it's psychological and it's emotional? It helps to teach you. I think it is, because I won't mention this gentleman's name because I would not want to embarrass him or his wife, but a gentleman that's part of our congregation, an older fella.
Here's the Allen. I'm not going to mention his name, but I'm going to whittle it down so far that you're probably going to know who it is.
But I saw this gentleman. He had gotten married, and
Where's he live?
he lives here, not in this building, but
What does his name rhyme with?
well,
No, don't tell us.
no, I'm not good. I can't do that. But see, I am a morning person.
You are.
But I just noticed that he was and still is trying to convert her to becoming a Christian. And I noticed one time during singing, he was sitting beside her, and he was just, his face, the direction of his mouth was pointing towards her, was facing her ear, and he was singing the words of that song. And I don't want to read too much into it, but I feel like that he was just trying to literally put those words, whatever that song was, into her so I look at it as a teaching tool. Singing is a teaching tool also.
Oh, it absolutely is. It drives home things, not only just in terms of memorization, like Joe was talking about earlier. Like now I can list the fruit of the Spirit. It's love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control.
Galatians
The
5.
reason I can do that is because there's a song, and it drove that list into me when I learned that song about that. But aside from that, just some of the theological concepts, the faith-building concepts, those things can drive into us through singing. And to Joe's point about how important it is, look at the Bible. What's the biggest book of the Bible by far?
Yeah, Psalms.
Psalms. It's the Bible
singing.
songbook. Yeah,
Singing.
it's all songs, and we are commanded to sing. The commandment to sing is probably only second to the commandment to pray in terms of the things that we're supposed to do worship-wise. Psalm 100 verse 2 says, "Serve the Lord with gladness, come before His presence with singing." Psalm 9 verse 11, "Sing praises to the Lord who dwells in Zion, declare His deeds among the people." Psalm 30 verse 4, "Sing praises to the Lord, you saints of His, and give thanks at the remembrance of His holy name." Psalm 47 verse 6, "Sing praises to God, sing praises to our King, sing praises." That one verse commands us 4 times to sing. So it's all through that. It is considered important by God for a lot of the reasons we have already talked about. I guess we're going to get into Ephesians and Colossians here in a minute, but is there anything y'all wanted to discuss before we get into that?
Well, I want to bring one more story from the life of Joe. Back when young Joe was a college student, there was this guy, and he sang all the time to a point where it was like, that's probably not the right setting to be singing in, but all the time. But here's the other thing. Happiest guy I've ever seen in my life.
Joy came
Never
out
saw
in song.
him not smiling. And I just asked him, "Man, why do you sing all the time?" He had a beautiful voice. And I asked him, "Why do you sing all the time?" And he said, "I got a song in my heart. I got to let it out." And that was his answer. And he went away singing.
Yeah.
But I thought, you know what? I should be more like that. We should be more like, we're not, because it can be embarrassing if you're just going around singing all the time, but
It expresses emotion.
it expresses emotion. That
or
man
even
was
when
happy.
even when you're sad, people listen to sad songs to work through.
And Willie Franklin, is he the one that sings on airplanes? Or have you told me that, or did I hear that? He talked about
I don't know that.
I don't know. So you sent me a lesson that he was doing in Richmond, Kentucky.
I don't think I did.
Where he talked in his presentation, he talked about you ought to look at how people respond and get this going on an airplane when he starts getting everybody to sing on the airplane.
We'll find it. I don't think I sent that to you. Send it to me. That sounds.
It's a different kind of heavenly singing.
But let's look at if the people can't tell, I'm dealing with some congestion. I'll put it out there. So would one of you guys read Ephesians 5, starting at 18 through 21.
Yeah.
Or through 20.
18 through 20. And do not be drunk with wine, which is dissipation, but be filled with the Spirit, speaking to one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing and making melody in your heart to the Lord, giving thanks always for all things to God the Father in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. So there are a lot of things that stand out with that, but one thing right at the very front end, we're exhorted to be filled with the Spirit, speaking to one another in psalms, hymns, and spiritual. So apparently singing is a part of being filled with the Spirit. And that's one of the things that, I don't know if it's demonstrative of that or what, but if we're going to be Spirit-filled people, then participating in singing is one of the ways that's shown. And there's a couple of different directions to that singing, and both of them are important. One is speaking to one another. This we oftentimes talk about how God is the audience, and He is, but we are directing it to one another. There's a communal aspect to it. We're teaching one another, we're motivating one another, we're exhorting one another. All of that's why we do congregational singing. Is everybody is participating, supposed to be participating in this exhortation to one another, and like we were talking about earlier, that power of singing with other people. When you find and trying to do it well, like it's not. If somebody can't sing well, that doesn't mean you shouldn't participate. Yes, absolutely participate, make that joyful noise, but do the best you can. I mean, try. And when you find that pitch and people are harmonized together, you can feel those vibrations in your body, and it's a special thing when you're in a crowd that is really, really singing, and it feels very different from when you're in a group where everybody's just kind of mumbling or half-heartedly doing it, and maybe not everybody's participating. Maybe there's only a handful of people that are actually participating, and it feels much more dead.
And I'm only talking about me. I'm not pointing fingers, but when it comes to worship, I've shared maybe here. I know in the Wednesday night class, I've shared that I teach that I want to be more engaged in worship. I want to be more engaged, and so I feel like that in order for me to be engaged and be a participant as God would have me to be, I need to sing. I need to really, to the best of my ability. Not to the point that it runs people off, sitting in front of me or behind me, but I can sing to a level that I'm participating. I'm not going to oversing, sing over somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to yell or anything like that. But it's a way for me to worship God, and I need to make sure that I'm doing my best and not be on my phone and not, those kind of things, but be engaged.
Yeah, you're not being passive there. That's one of my favorite parts of worship, because it's maybe the most active part of worship. You're engaged on so many levels. Your voice is engaged. Your mind is engaged as you think about the words. You're reading the words maybe off the screen or the songbook or
not
whatever.
In a self-serving way, but we're getting to engage. It's active.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And that's one of those things that since COVID, so many people have gone to the virtual worship. That's one of the things that you miss out on if you're only engaging virtually, which I know some people, that's all you can do, and you do the best you can. But if you have the option of being in person, this is one of the benefits of being there is other people. You can sing with the other people, and they can sing with you. You can sing along at home, but that's not benefiting anybody else. When you're there with the group singing, you're blessing other people as well. Not just with the musical quality of your voice, but with the energy that you're putting into it.
Well, what you're saying is just the story I just relayed a second ago. A guy that was singing all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody loved being around that guy.
Yeah.
We were all encouraged being around, and he sang like a member of Boys to Men or something. This guy could sing. If I could sing like that, I'd probably sing all the time too.
Mm-hmm.
but you couldn't help but like being around him. You just wanted to be around him because he was in such a good mood, singing like that. Put you in a good mood being there with him. He encourages us.
Right. Yeah. That one time I was in a church service. I was telling you this before we started recording, but with there's a lady sitting behind me that had some sort of special needs, and she sang out loud. She had evidently one song that she knew or really liked a lot, but she sang that song over and over again while the rest of us sang all the different songs. But she was singing loudly this song, and in some ways it was distracting, but in other ways it was great because she was bringing that joy.
It, and she was singing her heart out, I bet.
Exactly.
She was doing her very best.
She was, and it was edifying.
It would be difficult to sing different words and rhythms and melodies than somebody singing next to you. But still, she was making that joyful noise, and like Alan said, doing the best she could. I think that's very admirable.
It really is.
Let's look at... I'm sorry, Alan, were you...
No, I won't say that.
If we can look at Colossians 3 right fast, too, and one of you guys read...
Verse 16?
Can you start 15? Because it talks about being one body in 15.
You want to grab that one, Melatones Jones?
15 and 16.
Colossians 3.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Colossians 3:15 says, "And let the peace of God rule in your hearts, to which also you were called in one body, and be thankful. Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, in all wisdom, teaching and admonishing one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing with grace in your hearts to the Lord."
See, that uses that phrase at the end, to the Lord. And we saw that again in Ephesians 5:19, singing, making melody in your heart to the Lord. This is given to the Lord. It's an offering. It's something that He's commanded, and something that we offer. You only offer things that are valuable. You're only commanded to offer things that are valuable. The Old Testament sacrifices, you're supposed to give the first fruits and that kind of thing. You're given the best. So that speaks to the value of the musical part of worship, of the power of music. The value of singing is that we're commanded to give that to the Lord. God never instructs us to put junk onto the altar, right? So that means it's something that is that's important. Like we've been talking about.
We talked earlier, too. This is something that we do here that we'll also be doing in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
So it must be a pretty great thing if we're going to be doing it in heaven, too.
Yeah, that's right. How many things can you walk around doing on earth that you can say with confidence that this is a heavenly activity? This is what what the angels are doing in heaven, what we are going to be doing in heaven when we get there, is singing praises with one another. And so that's a little, when you're in a group of people that are doing that sincerely and energetically, that's a little slice of heaven.
I think there'll be 4-part harmony in heaven.
Maybe it'll be 16-part. They'll ramp it up.
Like the greatest commands.
Right.
Yeah, maybe so. That's still 4-part.
I like it when one of our song leaders says, "Everybody stand."
You got to stand up.
Yeah, well, that's what he tells us to do.
The calisthenics part of the worship.
In that song,
yeah.
In the greatest, it gets to the end. He gets to the end, kind of, when it's the crescendo. Everybody stand.
So you're a stand-up kind of guy.
I am.
Yeah. Stand up for Jesus.
Yeah.
Are you allowed to sit down and sing that?
It doesn't feel right, does it? Like that's obviously not what it's talking about, but
Right.
It feels weird to sit down and sing that.
So one thing we talked about too, and we've touched on it, but before the show we were talking, we've encouraged folks to sing, but we're trying to advocate really. If you're in a worship service and you're uncomfortable singing, what kind of advice do we have for somebody that maybe, because we've all seen it, there's folks that just kind of sit there and listen.
Mm-hmm.
How can we encourage them to participate?
See, I think that
Connected to
is
worship,
challenging.
or remind them.
Yeah, well, maybe for people especially that did not grow up in church. If you grow up in a church where there is that congregational singing, you kind of get used to it. You're probably more comfortable with it if you grew up doing it and can power through those adolescent years where you get less comfortable with your voice because it's changing, you don't know what to do with it, but you get through that and you're accustomed to singing. It's easy to participate.
I'm still in that phase sometimes.
Then it's just a matter of doing what you know you're supposed to do. But for people that came to church as adults and they didn't grow up doing that, there's not a lot of areas in society outside of that you're expected really to sing. I mean, like you mentioned a concert earlier, even that you do it voluntarily. There's no compulsion that you ought to be singing. It's just if you feel like singing, then you do that. And so it may feel unnatural and uneasy for a new convert that is an adult. So one of the things that can help you is maybe work on learning a little bit about music. I'm not saying you have to be able to read music, but listen to sing along with songs in your car or in your home, and kind of get comfortable with your voice and get comfortable with singing.
Learn the melodies of songs.
Yeah.
So if you're not an expert singer, don't try and sing tenor.
Right.
Sing the main melody, the alto part. Follow the song leader, sing what they're singing.
Yeah, do that. That's going to be the easiest part. And just hop in there and do it. And the more that you do it, the more you get comfortable with it. I think probably, I don't know everybody's mindset, but my guess is that most people that aren't really participating maybe are doing that because they're self-conscious about their voice. And they don't feel like they can sing, so they don't want to sing.
Well, and it's easy to congregate with other folks who are not singing. So I would encourage you to, if singing's something that you struggle with, sit with folks who are singing their hearts out. Mm-hmm. First of all, they're not going to hear you anyhow because they're singing their hearts out.
Yeah.
They're not focused on what you're doing. And it will allow you someone to kind of follow. Mm-hmm. Where if you sit with other folks who are equally as self-conscious about their voice or whatever, y'all are just going to sit back there in silence and listen to everybody else sing. It would be best if you could sit with folks who are confident and who are singing out loud. Even if they're not great singers, if they're singing out loud, it gives you somebody to follow.
Singing-wise, I'm speaking broad generalization here for in congregations that I've visited or been around. The best place to sit is about 2/3 of the way up in the auditorium, because you're going to have, if you get too far forward, it tends to
you're
thin
in the
out.
youth group.
or you're there all by yourself.
Yeah.
It tends to get thinner in the first few pews. But if you can sit at the front part of the bulk of the people singing, that's going to envelop you in that sound much more, and it's easier to sing out if you don't hear yourself that much, and you're able to kind of blend in with what everybody else is doing. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. Anything else we need to cover on singing? We should at least touch on it. The Bible mentions singing. It doesn't mention drum solos like me in the funeral home.
Right.
And so we worship and sing without instruments here. Mechanical instruments, just our voice. We won't go into all that. We have
an episode on it.
We have episodes on that in the past. That wasn't really the purpose of this episode. But if you're ever curious as to why we don't sing with accompaniment,
you might I don't know what you can do in the notes or whatever, but the show notes, you might can hyperlink one of those episodes.
I'll try to link to an old episode on that.
But yeah, one of the things we want to achieve with this is encourage you to confidently participate in the song service, to sing out. You'll be blessed by it. Everybody else will be blessed by it as well. And it's, that music, it teaches, it motivates, it convicts, it deepens emotions, it builds connections and bonds with the people that you're singing with, and it can really accelerate those relationships and those feelings.
Alan, are you still with us?
Yes. still with us.
I'm looking here. You hadn't spoken quite a bit. You got anything to add before we wrap it up?
And it's been just a few minutes, but the only thing I would add about the importance of singing is it is an active part of worship. You can, as the preacher is preaching.
We all do it. We only have one preacher up there generally, but we all sing.
If the preacher is preaching, I'm active because I want to follow along, and I love taking notes. I know that sounds cheesy, but I love taking notes. So I'm participating by writing down, flipping, turning, making connections in my head. That helps keep me focused. But when it's time to sing, that it's a part of worship. And we need to make sure, no matter how badly someone says we sing or how badly we think we sound, we still need to do our best and sing out.
That's right.
Yeah, and as side point with that is think about the words and the meaning of it. There were times that I'll opt to not sing a line or a part of a song if maybe I happen to disagree with that song, or I find that it doesn't apply to me and I feel like I can't really sing those words honestly because I want to mean what it is that I'm singing. Does that make sense?
Sounds good.
All right, so if that's everything, then dear listener, thank you for letting us be a part of your spiritual diet today and listening to Soul Training. If you wouldn't mind, give us a 5-star rating, share it with others. That helps other people to find this, and if you find it beneficial, then hopefully they will as well. We want to thank the elders at the South Green Street Church of Christ for making Soul Training possible. We want to thank our new friends at the Light Network, and we encourage you to check out the other fine podcasts that are part of that family. And until next time, I'm Daniel on behalf of Alan and Joe. Keep soul training.
Soul training. Time to practice what you preach. Ooh, yeah. Yes, we do. We've got soul training.
To learn more, you can email us at soultrainingpodcast@gmail.com, or you can write to us, P.O. Box 503, Glasgow, Kentucky, 42142. That's Soul Training.